This spirit guide came in as a past life husband from ancient Egypt. In my mind, I was in love. Like, this was somebody who knew me all my life and seemed so familiar to me. He said it. He was with me since forever. No matter how many in my past lives I would marry, he was the one.
Hello and welcome to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. My guest today is Melissa Aguilar. She used to be very involved in a lot of things surrounding New Age spirituality, and more specifically, she was a practicing psychic medium. It was common for her to receive messages from spirit guides, but one of them was not just a messenger. He claimed to be her past life husband. By the way, he did mention his name, and there's a good chance you've already heard about it, but I won't spoil that yet. Anyway, Melissa developed a romantic relationship with the spirit, and that's what we're going to talk about today. How did she start hearing spirits? What her relationship with this spirit guide looked like? What this past life husband claimed about himself? And how did things eventually come to an end? It's a fascinating episode as always, so let's get right into it with Melissa, beginning with how she first realized that she had a gift to know things that she had no way of knowing.
Started getting interested in other things because my mother and I loved the History Channel, and I always would watch things on ancient Egypt, and she loved ancient Egypt. And so we would talk about aliens, and she would say the aliens built pyramids and conspiracy theories. So that opened up just that interest, and watching ghost hunting shows and open up, the possibilities, past lives, being possible, children, speaking about past lives. It had all sorts of shows, and that piqued interest of this, who is God? Who is God? And that just started opening up doors to different religions. But I would still say I was Christian, and I would go to Catholic church. I was invited by one friend to Catholic church. So I'm still searching, though. And I'm looking now in different places, History Channel, just wanting to know the mysteries of the world.
Yeah. And I think that's a desire that most of us, if not all of us, kind of have. Like, who is God? What is this thing that we're in? Why do we exist? So these are important questions that you were asking yourself at a relatively young age, and that leads you into, kind of looking everywhere. Let's try to figure this out. So this is interesting. When and why did you start to dip your toes a little bit in white magic?
I still have no idea how I got to that place, but I know one thing that I can pinpoint when I found a video on YouTube, and it was intuition exercises. I never seen that before. I said, I don't know, let me just press play. I don't know what piqued my interest, but I watched this video. They hold a box, or it could be anything. There's something inside of it, and they don't show you what's inside, but they say to exercise your intuition, what is in the box. So the first time I played it, I screamed because I knew it was something purple. I knew what was in there without having the correct words to name it. So I screamed. I got a little bit afraid because the second time it happened, again, I knew what was in this box because she uncovers it, she or he, whoever it is, and the item was there. So I got a little afraid, but it also was piquing my interest. I said, oh my goodness, I must be psychic. Like, I knew what was in that box, and it would happen over and over again. And my sister was identifying already, as a witch, a psychic. This has been around. It's nothing new. It's in schools, it's everywhere, the way I was growing up. And I started from there. I started learning how to meditate. I never meditated in my life, but, doing all this research and about if you meditate, it opens up your senses. And I sat in a closet just trying to sit still and through this guided video that I found, and it started through there. And then it was so fast. From there, I started reading oracle cards. I started making friends online. And I was in a community where it was called New Age. I had never heard about New Age. And I'm making these friends, and I started, doing pendulum readings, learning about crystals. I started learning how to read tarot. And it was, Gabriel, I was good at it. And what I mean by that is because, you only tell me a little bit, and I just took off from there. I started doing things I never did. I started reading water. I started reading crystal balls. Nobody ever taught me. I just started reading crystal balls. And before I know it, I started having clients. They would call me angel communicator. I started communicating with spiritual guides. I saw an angel of light introducing people to their own spiritual guides. That's how fast, I know I'm going quick, but that's how fast it was for me. It was like in a blink of an eye, I just took off into the white magic.
Maybe we can get a little of an idea of that timeline. I think that would be helpful. So how old were you when you saw that video and you could figure out what was in the box before it was being uncovered? And how fast did that develop in terms of years or months or whatever it was?
How old was I? So don't quote me on this. Maybe 38.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe 38, 37.
And how fast did it take for you to go from that initial video to doing the oracle cards and the pendulums and all these things that you just mentioned?
I would say I've never been asked that before, but reflecting maybe a year.
Okay.
Maybe a year and a half.
So from pretty much all your life, you had some exposure to other people doing this thing, but you'd never done it. And then from the time that you do it, you become, I don't know, maybe an expert is not the exact perfect term. I don't know what you would say, but it's kind of explodes these abilities and you just figure out, wow, I can do all these things. And I guess, was there a part of you that was interested? Why did you keep searching or trying different things? What was the mentality behind that?
My mentality was it all makes sense. It's all coming together. Because, like I said, I was watching, movies with witches and magic and the occult, and it just drew me in. I was finally in a place where I understood, this is the creation of the world. Wow, okay, we have psychic abilities, and we're here to help people. And finally, I was in a community where you could talk about it freely, and they understood, they welcomed you in. It just piqued my interest. And I was taking courses also. I took astrology courses. I was not too good with astrology, but I was taking that. I took some tarot courses. I took some courses to learn how to read runes, and I was doing rune readings also. I just, it was just a whirlwind that piqued my interest, that something in me was lighting up. They had answers, Reiki. I started doing Reiki, shamanic drumming, using music and beats, something I really enjoyed. And I just felt really free at that point.
So all these things that you mentioned, I mentioned pendulum, but Reiki and tarot cards, all of that is tied to the world of witchcraft. Would you have considered yourself a witch at that point?
No, Gabriel, if anybody would have said I was a witch at that time, I would have said they're crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand. I was doing God's work. I was helping people. I was connecting people to their lost loved ones, people who have, they crossed over. and I was helping connect them, bringing closure. I was doing God's will, God's work, but people didn't understand that.
Yeah. I see that a lot with people. I'm curious with your Catholic husband. I don't know how devout he was to Catholicism, but when you start engaging in these things that, by my understanding, fit all in the category of witchcraft, whether people want to admit it or not, what did he think about you doing that?
He was not on board at all. We had a lot of problems in our marriage because I just thought he's just trying to control me, wants me in the kitchen, cooking, taking care of the kids. But Gabriel, I was also disabled. So this is something I wanted for myself. I felt alive. It was finally coming together. I was my true and highest self. And he was telling me, you're wrong. And I wouldn't hear it. So we separated. I left him for a month. I moved in with my sister. I left him. I left my children, something I would never, ever, 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 ever have done. And I came back a month later. And so he kind of kept his peace, and let me practice, what I was doing.
I find it interesting, the things you mentioned. It goes back for me to the word empowerment, and that's a word that's become very popular in culture. I don't know how long it's been. Maybe it was before I was born, but I've been hearing it in the past 5-10 years or so. This empowerment, not just women empowerment, that's a big one, but empowerment just in general. People want to be empowered. I find that a lot of the times it does not end up being very positive. So I found it interesting that in your life it had sort of a destructive effect. But let's get to the kind of the thing that I would say is the most shocking, if you want to use that, about your story and your journey, is that you met a spirit who claimed to be your past life husband or something of that nature. So can you explain the circumstances of how you met that spirit and when in the timeline of what we've been talking about that was?
Yes. So this was pretty much, I would say, 2 years in, or maybe a little earlier, into practicing that. I started hearing and seeing, in the spirit. And I would hear this spiritual guide who introduced himself as my past life husband. And now, all my life, I loved ancient Egypt and things of mysteries. And there's very much belief systems of past lives in there. So I was very open to that. And so spiritual, this spirit guide came in as a past life husband from ancient Egypt, that he was always with me. He knew so much about me. And I'm here again. I would hear him like if I was talking to you right now. I was not on drugs. I was not on alcohol, no, substance abuse. And I would start seeing also. But there was also a dark presence. I would do the chanting, the drumming, energy healing, just sitting in the earth grounding. But yet I always felt a dark presence sometimes when something would come in. And this spiritual guide would kind of assure me that everything's okay, and I would ask questions. Are you from God? And I remember him saying, I'm from both. And I would say, okay. He's like, I work with God. I work with both. And I believed it. I was totally, I was all in. But one thing didn't make sense logically. I would hear this spiritual guide say bad words and say racist stuff. And I'm not a racist. But I was like, why would you say that if you're from God? It wouldn't make sense. but well, everything's fine. No, everything's fine. And I'll just, keep going. But I'm like, why am I seeing these dark things at nighttime? I saw a half horse, half man in my room. I would hear really scary things, see things crawling on the wall at night, why would I see these things? But I would just keep going and push through and just say, it's something, just a dark spirit need to get out, and keep going and ignore those aspects.
If we go back to that spirit guide who said he was a past life husband from Egypt, I think, ancient Egypt, can you expand, if you know more, about the things that he claimed about himself? Like, was he talking about himself at all? And if he did, what did he say about himself?
Yes, he did. Thank you for asking that, Gabriel. This is something that many people will hear, and I like to explain it this way. When someone is in an abusive relationship, outsiders will say and criticize them, why don't they just leave? But they don't understand the mental state the person's in, the oppressed state they're in. So in my case, this spiritual guide said he was Osiris. And if you know about ancient history, that was like the first god, and his wife's name was Isis. And she brought him back, raised him from the dead. He was chopped up into pieces, and he was saying that he was Osiris and that I was Isis. And I really believe this. One day, I remember my husband and I had an argument, and he didn't know about any of this because I didn't share that part. I kind of kept that private because the spirit guide would tell me that the names of the spirit guides are very sacred, And so not every time I would get a reading, I wouldn't say the spirit guide's name of the person I was introducing their spirit guide to. So I believe this. And so I didn't really share his name. But I remember my husband, not knowing about this, told me that I was turning green, like my skin was turning green. And I saw his eyes like, what is wrong with you? What's happening? So I really believe this.
And it's also important to say there's a difference between just hearing that from someone. Like if a random person comes to you and tells you that they're Osiris, it's different than having a spirit that carries a lot of power and mystique to it. So it's understandable why that would be more convincing. If people have never had experiences like that, probably maybe that helps to put it in a different light. And I also find it interesting, before I get to my other question, that he's kind of indirectly told you that you were a goddess. Did you understand it at the time? Because that's what Isis is. So did you see yourself as that, really?
I kind of did. I started buying, tarot cards about ancient Egypt. They have tarot cards of everything, by the way. And I started buying ancient, Egyptian cards. I started wearing these dressings on my head that you would see me wear, these crystal, like head dressings. And I really thought it was incarnation, that is who I am. And he would explain how, you fulfill this life, you fulfill the next one, and you learn these lessons. And he would give me these wisdom, and he knew so much about me. He said it. He was with me since forever, since I was, little. And he knew so much. And, I would get introduced to other spiritual guides and other, intelligent beings. And I would get all these knowledge. I mean, Archangel Metatron, and it would download information. I've never been good at math. I was seeing all the sciences, and my spiritual eyes, it was just opening up this spiritual realm for me.
It's very interesting. If people have been following the channel, I did an interview very recently, a couple of interviews ago, that talked about very similar things. So if you want to check it out after, you can. But for those of us, Melissa, who don't typically have experiences like this, can you maybe explain what these interactions were like? Was it the same thing as just someone walking in the room? Was it kind of a ghost in the way that shows depict? Can you maybe help us to understand what that was like?
I would explain it in one word, and just if you could let this sit for a second: power. power. These things, they're powerful. They have a presence to them of authority, of truth, but also of torment. Something you do not cross at the same time.
And when you, because you said earlier you could like hear him the way you hear me, right? Could you see him that same way? Could you touch him? Maybe, I don't know. How was that?
Yes. Well, I couldn't really see him, but I'm just, this is very personal to me, but I will share this. We had, at that time, sexual experiences with this, spiritual guide, because, like he said, he was my past life husband all my life. No matter how many in my past lives I would marry, he was the one.
How did that feel? Did that feel right? Because you were married at that point. Now there's this spirit saying he's your past life husband, but he's kind of also acting as like this present life husband. Was there a conflict inside of you about that?
Yes, there was. And so, this spiritual guide, this whole community that I had come to love and made friends and really good friendships with, I was just, in my mind, I was in love. Like, this was somebody who knew me all my life and seemed so familiar to me. So familiar. I would get used to his presence when he would come in. It felt so real, all day long with me, all day long, all day long. And the way that the spiritual realm was just open, it was truth to me. I said, I knew it. I knew it. This really has always existed. I started even seeing fairies, you know. Yeah, I would know stuff about fairies, about blue beings and aliens and different worlds. It was just a load of information, of questions that I always had, but never found answers to.
Yeah. What kind of effect did that have on your relationship with your husband and your kids, with this other spirit kind of interjecting himself into the conversation, being like, no, forget about this other guy. Like, I'm actually your husband. I've always been your husband. What kind of effect did that have on your relationship and your family?
There was a strain, of course, but I didn't care. Um, it was all about, empowerment of woman, of myself. I said, I'm not made to just be a housewife, a disabled housewife. I have purpose. And I really didn't care. I saw my children and I would try to tell them it's okay. I have a spiritual guide. He's always been with me, and trying to explain how he's here to help me through this life. And I was trying to introduce my children, my two daughters, particularly, not my son, but my two daughters, to their spiritual guide, and that they have always had gifts also. And it's passed through, the women in my family. So I was opening their, understanding of all these things, that there are answers to the questions that they seek. But I would see the distance in my children and my husband, but I didn't care. It was all about, me.
I keep thinking about the kind of the things that made it seem off. That you talked about the spirit guide kind of maybe losing character at points and saying things that are really evil. And there's other things that you would see that made you think there's something wrong here, but I'll ignore that and I'll just focus on the good parts. Um, I keep thinking about this and I wonder how that kind of fit in your relationship with God, if you want to say so. When you went into this, you were maybe loosely Christian, maybe is a way to say it. How did that Christian affiliation, uh, how did that get affected by these practices that you were doing, and then that spirit guide coming into your life?
There was, I would say, in my mind at that moment, no difference. I was still going to church. I would go to church on Sundays and I would do readings, during the week. And I was serving the Lord. This is the Lord's work. He called me to this. And, He's open. There's all ways to go to heaven, all ways to go to heaven. And I was a good person. I was helping people. And so my belief from, before and the belief that I had when I was practicing, it was just, in my mind, completion. And I was ignoring the bad stuff. I would ask why to a point that brought me to a specific point, because I would see very dark. I had battles. Like when I was in that, I saw these big, giant, lizard looking, reptilian looking things, very demonic things. I remember like trying to draw blood because they said I would die. I felt my heart coming out of my chest. There was a point that I had to cross, in order, there was a price to pay in order for me to really follow this path. And it was like blended in. It's not like an A and B. It just was a building up. And then I never thought, though, of calling on the name of Jesus or God. I would still go to church. I really thought I was still walking, as a good person, going to church. Nothing's changed. I have a spirit guide. I'm doing readings. I'm helping people. They don't understand. This is the truth. Everybody goes, to heaven. There's multiple ways to heaven. And I could see it now. There's something that I would be asked, when was your awakening? And so we'll say, oh, I was awakened on this, time or this time. There was it was powerful. It was community. It was family. The spiritual realm is very real. It was very real then. It's very real now. And I would even speak in light language. And it was just a marrying of everything together.
You said you were going to church regularly. Were you friends with people in there? And if you were, did they confront you about some of these things? 'Cause I think for the majority of people going to church, the majority of Christians, if they hear someone being a psychic medium inside the church, it would raise red flags and at least warrant a conversation with that person. Did you ever have that in church?
I didn't, because I moved out of the state I grew up in to a new state with my family. And so till that point, I hadn't built relationship, no friendships. It was so hard to make friends. And I didn't have friends in church. I didn't have community in church. I just had my family.
So that's actually interesting. You were sort of isolated, I guess, within your family, but you didn't really share a whole lot with at least your husband, you said. And that's an interesting dynamic that maybe contributed to whatever's going on. Did it ever reach like a breaking point? We talk about this and how you felt like it was the right thing to do, but you seem to be talking about it in a different way now. So did it ever reach a point where, I don't know, things just weren't the same?
Yes. So changes started happening when things weren't the same. For example, I remember getting touched, really feeling a hand that I screamed when I drove through like a wooded area at night with my husband. We're going to the supermarket. There was a back way and I was touched. And I remember I was very uncomfortable asking my spirit guide, what was that? And he's like, oh, nothing, just ignore it. But there was like a laughter to it. I remember seeing these things crawling on the roofs of people's houses. I remember seeing this is in the spirit, people hanging from trees. It was a lot of dark things that I would see. And my husband and I had an experience where we both were in a car at night, and I saw a woman pass, and he wasn't practicing or in anything, and I just saw a really ugly, distorted face, and he saw it too when the headlights hit and reflected on her. And this was just getting a little too uncomfortable for me. But at the same time, my daughter was invited to church, and she started going to church, and all of her friends, she got baptized. All the friends that she knew from high school that would always come to this house that we would feed, and would just hang out. This was the home. They would hang out and started getting saved. And they started praying for me. And I didn't know my husband was also praying for me. And now worship music is playing in my home. I didn't know that existed. So now I started singing to these songs while I was practicing. And things started changing, Gabriel. Things started changing in my home. And there was really a warfare for myself. I remember I wrote a book at this time. I wrote 2 books. And I was selling it outside in a garage sale. It was our first one. And I put my books to sale with all the crystals also. And there was people coming from everywhere. They knew I was selling crystals. But there was one man who passed by my table, and I don't remember his face, but I remember he looked. He said, "Can I pray for you?" And I said, "Yes." He didn't say anything bad. He didn't say anything condemning. But I remember it being a beautiful prayer. But when he left, I said, "Oh, he thinks I'm doing bad. He doesn't understand I'm doing God's work. He thinks I'm bad." And I felt something. I didn't have the words of what I was feeling. But I said, "I don't want to be the bad one. I've never been bad in my life." I felt something, and things started changing in this house. My daughter invited me to a Christian concert with her friend. And I said, "Well, these young girls really want to hang out with an old lady." But they're like, "No, come with us." So I went to this concert. And I remember this concert. It was either the name of the concert, I have pictures of it still. 7 was on this screen, really big screen. And in this concert, I was raising my hands and worshiping the Lord. And I'm mentioning that because later on, it'll come to full circle of this concert. And then I remember getting sick. And that's where everything changed. I was supposed to get a surgery. And I went to do some tests before the surgery date, and I never made it to that surgery because I had aggressive pneumonia. I never had pneumonia in my life. All I knew is I was home. I had gone to the doctors, and there came a point where if I moved a little bit, I just couldn't catch my breath. And my husband took me to the hospital one night when I was like, okay, I think I have to go. Next thing I know, I'm being wheeled and I'm being admitted. And they're telling me I have pneumonia. And it just started from there. That's when my life changed. I was dying. And I remember the first night in the hospital. I've never seen this, Gabriel, but there was a nun. I only seen it in movies. There was a nun, like full nun, and she was my nurse. Wow. And She was taking care of me for the night. I remember there being a Zoom call because now friends are finding out that I'm in the hospital. And these friends, they loved me. You know, we were close. Went on a Zoom call. They were doing Reiki. They were doing shamanic healing, you know, chanting, shamanic drumming, and praying all on a Zoom call so that I could get better. And Gabriel, I got worse. I didn't get better. And the thing is, while I was in the hospital, all the abilities I had from seeing, you know, past life ones, from looking and knowing stuff about people, it all stopped. I remember trying to look at my nurse and being like, why can't I see anything? I would see people and know stuff, intimate stuff about them, right? That's how my readings went. I never researched or anything. I just put play. I know stuff about them, their family, describe loved ones that had passed. And I couldn't see. And I didn't hear my spiritual guide when I was in the hospital. Not one time. Disappeared. And I was wondering, where's the spiritual guide? What happened to all the gifts that I had that I could do? I can't see into people anymore, but I was so weak. By this time, Gabriel, I fainted. I don't know what happened. I walked to the bathroom. I knew if I didn't get up, I would die. But I was dying. I knew I was dying. If you ever been in a situation, those who have, you know when you're dying. I knew I was dying. The doctor, I blacked out, and he's like, I don't understand why you're not getting better. And I was like, I don't know either. And so they did some tests, and he told me it had spread. Now they're talking about intubation. It happened so fast. They're putting me now into intensive care. They can't get enough oxygen in my lungs. And by this time I was not eating. I stopped eating anymore. And I just felt, again, I was dying. And I just said, Lord, I called out. And I said, I really messed up. And something extraordinary happened before this that I would really like to mention here. But in the hospital, I told him I really messed up. And if he saved my life, then I would never do this again. And it's not like it happened so fast overnight. It didn't. I was in intensive care for some time. I really don't know how long I was there for. And then from there, it was a step back to the regular room. And it was a process. And my recovery took almost a year. I came home, with a walker, with home health aides, with all this assistance. I had oxygen tanks. I was the weakest I'd ever been in my life. I don't wish that on anybody. But it's also, God is so good. He redeemed me. And this is when my life started changing. But Gabriel, I want to mention, before I ended up in the hospital, something weird happened. I had 2 dreams. Well, there was 3, but I'll speak of one very vivid dream of this red tunnel, and it was breathing. This thing was alive in my dream. And I'm walking, and it's a dark red, breathing, alive. And in the end, it's dark. But I would see a demon crawling, and I would say, go back to God, and poof, he'll disappear. And then I'll walk further into this tunnel. And it's dark, but it's weird. I just kept going in because another one would crawl on the side, and I would say, go back to God. It would disappear, and I'm going in further. And at one point I said, wait a second, in my dream, if I go further, I'm going to die. I knew they were deceiving me, and I woke up. So that's just one. I had 3. I won't mention the other ones. And then after that dream, I remember when I would pray, because I was still praying. When I would pray, Gabriel, my prayers weren't being heard. My prayers would just, the best way I explain it is that the prayers would stay here. They wouldn't go up anymore. And so I was in despair. I asked, the friends I had in that community, the psychics, clairvoyants, all of us, the friends I had, what's going on? How come my prayers aren't being heard? I pray and it just drops. It stays here. And nobody had an answer. And I asked my sister as well. Nobody had an answer. And that is the worst feeling. I pray nobody experiences that, because I felt separation from the Lord, and I knew I was in trouble. You're like, I was the walking dead. When there is no relationship, you are the walking dead. There's a void, there's emptiness, there was despair. And so it was like warnings. And after that is when I landed in a hospital.
So the prayers stopped being answered before you entered the hospital? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, they were not being answered. They would just fall. They would stay here. They were not going up. They were just staying here. That was before I landed in the hospital. And the dream that I had, the 3 dreams before I landed in the hospital.
Interesting. Okay. I've heard this from a couple people before, this kind of idea of prayers not reaching up. And from my recollection of those stories and kind of yours, it seems like something that you don't realize until they stop being really, like, until they stop going up the way that you say. Like, you don't realize that they're going up until it stops, and then you realize that that's what it is. Is that fair to say with you?
That is exactly it. And I haven't heard of anyone else going through this. So I'm so happy that you said you have heard of this before, because that's exactly what it is. You don't know until you know.
Yeah, there's this saying that people repeat a lot, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, that you don't realize what you have until you lose it, right? And in many areas in life, you don't realize how good your husband or wife is really to you until they leave, and now all of a sudden you're complaining. Is like, oh wait, maybe it wasn't that bad after all. And it seems to be exactly in this case. You didn't realize how good you were, God hearing your prayers, until that sort of stopped, and you realize that this is really bad. Also, it's you sort of mentioned it, but I do want to go back to this past life Egyptian spirit guide who's supposed to guide you through life and help you. At the moment where you needed him the most, you're about to die, he just disappeared, just nowhere to be seen.
Disappeared.
I think is very telling. On top of the fact that it kind of destroyed your entire family. I don't know if there's. I think the fruit is not necessarily something I would want to eat. But anyway, let's go back to your sickness and kind of how that changed you. It's when people come close to death, typically it has a very profound impact on their lives because it changes your outlook. It's in a very similar way from what I just mentioned, that you don't realize how good you have it until you don't. And life is that kind of thing. You don't realize how blessed you are to live until you're close to dying. So after this recovery, actually, before we get there, I had another question for you. You said you prayed to God in the hospital. You said, if you save me from this, I'll stop doing whatever I'm doing. What did you mean by stop doing what?
For me, it was, reading cards, doing psychic medium work, everything that I was doing. When I told him that, I just meant all of it. All of it. At that point, I just had a knowing. This whole time, I would say I was doing God's work. I truly thought I was doing God's work. But when I was in that hospital bed, in that silence, no spiritual guides, no gifts, all the gifts that I had, nothing. And I'm dying, and I knew It was everything that I was doing was not right. It was wrong. So, the readings, the Reiki, the tarot, the astrology, all of that. I was gonna leave it all.
It's really interesting to me. You're probably aware of this. The Bible talks about the voice of God being quiet, if I translate it into modern terms. And I find it interesting that it was in the moment of silence that you found clarity. I think there's a lot of wisdom in there. But when you left the hospital, like I just explained, I imagine it kind of changed who you were. So can you explain what pneumonia and surviving that, how that impacted your life and what ended up happening with the prayer that you had prayed also?
Yes, it had an impact on me. See, Gabriel, I always had asthma as a child, but as I grew older, kind of went away. But it does something to you. You cannot get breath, So just reflecting on the breath, being able to breathe every day, even that in itself, it's such a miracle. And I'm sorry, I forget the second part of what you asked me. So please forgive me, but it did really have an impact on how you see life and not taking for granted being able to wake up every day. The things we take for granted, taking steps, walking. It was so hard to take one step. Things we do automatically, natural, our body does. To others, it's not so easy. It's very hard, very difficult. So your mind does change and appreciate life of how really it could change in a second.
I suppose it also brings a lot of humility to someone when you can't do the things that are simple, which in many ways, maybe you could say is the opposite of empowerment. I don't know if that's totally accurate, but it seems to make sense in my mind right now. Maybe it doesn't. But the second part of the question is, like, what happened to your prayer? You said, God, if you save me from this, I'm going to stop doing all these readings and all the stuff you were engaged with. So whenever you survived, did you follow through with that word?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, actually, I messed up. When I came home, after some time, I touched the tarot again. I touched these cards again, but I had it was so strange, an attachment to these things. It wasn't until I started getting healthier, which took some time, where I was like, you know what? I said I wouldn't look back. I want to get rid of them. And I started crying just to get rid of them. It's so silly, but this is true. There was some sort of attachment. I first started selling them. Okay, I was like, I'm just gonna. I was telling the people I knew, I'm selling my whole collection, the books, everything, whatever you want. I just, I'm downsizing, and they were buying them from me. Why? Oh wow! I had these rare cards too from this woman who turned Christian. Her name was Doreen Virtue, and her cards were being sold on eBay and stuff because they were no longer, there. So people were buying those, and I just wanted to mention that woman, because something inside of me always would know her name, and I would feel like I was going to follow the Lord. It's something strange, but I never have mentioned this before. I know now. I didn't know then. I would be like, that's weird. I don't know why I feel like that. But every once in a while, I knew I was going to follow the Lord, right? And so, anyways, I started selling them, and then I felt something. I'm using terms, like if it was at that time. I started feeling something. I didn't know what it was, but I was feeling this feeling of, don't sell them. You got to throw this out. And so I remember a big box I had filled that somebody wanted to buy from me. And I'm like, there's so much money invested. I can't just throw them out. I filled this big box and I was really fighting. And I just sent it off. I said, I don't want it. I'm just going to send it off to the gentleman. It arrived broken. He said it arrived all over his lawn. The box just exploded open and there was tarot cards all over his lawn. Things were broken. And that's when I was like, that's it. And I started tossing them, but it wasn't by myself. My daughters actually had gone out one day and they found me crying and in my office. I'm like, I'm trying to throw these things away. I don't know why I keep crying and I just can't. And they helped me. They're like, let's help you, Mom. And by that time, my second daughter, my oldest, got baptized too. And so they were helping me. They were tossing everything out, and I did what I promised. I threw everything. I got rid of everything.
Wow. I want to ask you a clarifying question just to understand exactly what you mean when you say some of these things. You said you started following the Lord. Can you explain what that means to you? Like exactly, what do you mean you started following the Lord?
Yes. So to put it simple, I gave my life to Him. I made a choice. It all starts with a decision. The Lord told me that, by the way, and I'm sharing this with you today. The Lord told me it all starts with a decision, and I didn't know it then, but I know it now. I made a choice at that time, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm following Jesus. And so I was like, here I am, Lord. Here I am. I got rid of everything. Take over. Like, I need you. I want you. Take over. And that's what I mean by following the Lord. And when that happened, Gabriel, oh gosh, this is my favorite part. When that happened, so the Lord started changing my life. I had my first encounter with Him. I started reading my Bible. And pretty quickly, the people I knew, kind of stepped away from me. One friend I had at the time, was very angry. She later apologized, but she was very angry. I was telling them that those things that we were doing, and I was in, is really bad. It's not of God. And I try to, tell them Jesus is the way, and they just, they disappeared. And I was very lonely. I had no friends. My sister at that time, too, she was like, I don't want to hear it. Don't send these things to me. And I had my children. I had my husband. I had my family. And I prayed one day. I said, Lord, I was crying. I'm like, I would like friends. And all of a sudden on Instagram, I closed down my social medias, On Instagram, someone said, hey, would you like to come to Bible study? And it was a women's Bible study. And I started making friends. And I started learning to memorize scripture. One of the first scriptures I memorized is so powerful because Gabriel, when I made that choice to follow the Lord, I wanted to be very clear. I had to go through some things. I was demonically attacked, I would say, for like a month. Like I would see things at night. These things were trying to kill me. I was having heart palpitations. The very things that I thought were good and I was following, and I would ignore all the signs and all these logical things were attacking me. They were attacking me. I felt like I was being choked at night. I was having these tormenting dreams. I would wake up and see, don't watch the movie, but I watched it when I was younger, The Exorcist looking face, the girl from The Exorcist, very ugly, demonic things and activity trying to take my life. I couldn't even go at night to the bathroom, to use the restroom. Like, there was so much activity in my home. And one day, by the way, I was on YouTube again. I don't know how I came across this gentleman, but this man, I never looked up near-death experiences, anything like that, right? But I'm looking at this video, and it was about that. But I was listening to the message, and at the end, he said a prayer. And he said, to pray after him. So he's leading me in this prayer. And as I said this prayer, I was putting dishes away. As I said this prayer, a cup exploded in my hand. These heavy blinds that were in an office where I would do readings fell. They were very heavy. They just fell. They came off the window. They broke. Things started happening in my home. And it was the prayer of salvation. And during this time now, I'm having friends. I'm studying the Bible. I said, wow, all these things are in the Bible. The answers that I was seeking for were in the Bible. They were being answered. I was so excited. I'm like, why didn't I ever know this? I never knew this. I was reading the Bible, like what I felt was the first time in my life getting to know, who Jesus is, getting to know, history of why we were created, our purpose, like everything is in there. And then I had my encounter with Jesus. I was in my living room one day, and I had my encounter with him. He told me he's always been with me, and that he loves me. He gave me a message to take care of the children that he brings my way. And I just want everybody to know he is real. He is real. He is wonderful. He is love. He is, my goodness, he is love itself. He had white robes, and he looked different from me. So I asked him if I could still, it's just something I did, if I could still call him my father. He just looked different. He had brown hair, but I saw like if it was highlight, a little highlight, and his his just different, but all love. And he does have the holes. He has the holes in his hands, and just pure love. That is the truth. You cannot compare the presence of God to what I thought it was before. I saw an angel of light before, but this, the joy, the love, the peace, it was everything. He's everything. And after that encounter too with the Lord, and all these beautiful things happening, I love, getting to just commune with him. Again, I don't know why in the kitchen again, but this is how it happened. I'm putting stuff away. And I was so happy to be able to do this, because when I couldn't walk or breathe, I just really wanted to do this anyway. I'm putting dishes away, and I felt something come in the room, and I thought somebody was behind me. So I looked behind, and I saw this man with dirty robes. He had dirty robes on, and I knew what he was. I already knew this is what I was dealing with that whole time. And he says, there was like a recognition. I know what you are now. And he's very aware. He's like, please, I'm sorry. Come back. People knew you. You were making money. They knew who you were, who you are. Like, just come back. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was Proverbs 3:5, the first, scripture that I ever studied. I said, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. It wasn't even through 6. It was just Proverbs 3:5. And this thing, when I said scripture, Gabriel, something happened. first off, I stumbled back. Okay, I'm using the words that I understood it at that time. Something like came out of me. That's how strong it was. It went, whoosh, and I hear this beautiful voice come in. It was audible. It was with authority. It was like, I didn't know, it was like an angel or the Lord. It was like one and the same. And he said, "You are safe now." And I stood like I heard this, the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. And I was trying to understand what happened. It was so fast. All this happened, transpired in like a matter of seconds. So I sat down on my table and my husband walks in. He sees my face and I couldn't talk. And he's like, "What happened? What's wrong? What happened?" And then I just look at him and I'm like, "Jesus knows who I am. He knows me. Jesus knows who I am." It wouldn't be until 2026 where I'm rereading. I love the book of Acts. And I'm reading my Bible, and I'm seeing in the upper room how people heard the voice of God. Some heard it like thunder, and others describe it as an angel. And that's exactly what I heard. That's exactly what I heard. So I was delivered. I was delivered.
That is so interesting. So I just want to make sure that I got this right. I think I did. The man in dirty robes, as you called him, were you referring to that being like the quote unquote past life husband, spirit guide that was visiting you, and now you could actually see him for what he was?
Yeah.
He wasn't all that he said he was he?
Yeah. That's exactly it. I saw and I knew. And it was through the word of our Lord and Savior. I knew what it was. And it was not of God.
I have a question for you that I think is actually very interesting to ask you specifically. Because this whole time you thought you were dealing with good spirits. Turns out some weren't. Can you explain, now that you have seen, felt what it's like to be in the presence of a spirit from God or Jesus himself, like you said, and the other angel of light or the past life husband? What are the main differences between those two, and how could someone tell who they're dealing with?
Yes. So when I didn't know any better, I thought that was love. And once, I started to know the Lord, I made that decision, and he came into my life. I knew real love. And when you are in the presence and in the will of the Father, my gosh, you can't mimic that love. It's the purest love I've ever experienced in my life. It's so bright. His light is so bright. You cannot. It's dull in comparison to what I saw. You can't mimic the truth, and everything that the word says, it is real. I have seen it. I am living proof. I am a living testimony of redemption, of the power of prayer, and that he answers prayer, of his mercy and grace. And he, after everything I had done, Gabriel, somebody like me as a nobody, I'm just Melissa. He loved me. He still loved me.
Yeah, well, your story is very touching. I very much enjoy listening to you. And I would like to give you a chance to kind of talk to the people directly. If you could talk to whoever's listening, what's the most important message you would have for them? And maybe I'm thinking even more specifically about people that were in your shoes, right? Doing these things, thinking they're doing that for God. You don't need to be talking to them specifically. You can pick whatever you want. But yeah, what's the last message you would want to give to people today?
The last message I would say is make the decision today to follow him. Come as you are. Tomorrow is not promised. True love is outside of yourself. True love is the love of Christ and serving others and in his will for you. He has a purpose for you. He created you with a specific reason. He created you with love. He validates you. He loves you. He sees you. And this is your answered prayer today. If he did it for me, he will do it for you. And I would love you to follow me and just repeat these words after me. This prayer, I invite you to pray. This is you. Just pray after me. Blessed Father, I am a sinner. Forgive me of my sins. I make the decision today to follow you. I give it all to you. Please come into my heart. I need you. I want to get to know you. Have all of me. Thank you. I believe you are the Son of God, Jesus of Nazareth. And from this day forth, I want to follow you. Amen. And it's that simple. It's that simple.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Almost False podcast. If you like what you heard and would like to know more about Melissa, there's actually a story that we didn't get to, and it's how she was taken to heaven shortly after all of this. I asked her the most difficult questions I could think of, and she answered them to the best of her ability. So if you're interested in that, you can go to almostfalse.net or click the extra content link in the description. There's also a separate video there about the beginning of her life and how her upbringing contributed to the whole saga that you just heard about. You can actually listen to that one for free, so go check it out with the link in the description. But that's it for this episode. Thank you for staying to the end with me. I wish you a great rest of your day and stay blessed.